Welcome back to Wicked Crime Wednesday, the podcast that delves into the shadows lurking beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. I'm your host, Laura, and every Wednesday we will unearth stories that will make you question everything. Today, we're unraveling the chilling tale of Jennifer Pan, a story of ambition, pressure, and a desperate act that shocked a community. As always, grab your favorite drink, find a quiet corner, and let's dive in, because the truth is often darker than it appears. In 2004, Vic and Hugh had everything. They were the Canadian immigrant success story. Han, a political refugee from Vietnam, had fought his way to a stable job as a tool and die maker. Vic, too, had escaped hardship and worked diligently at Magna International. By all accounts, in their life in Markham, Ontario, should have been a dream. They had two children, Jennifer, born in 1986, and Felix, born a few years later. Both children, under their parents' guiding hands, were poised to take the family legacy even further. Jennifer, particularly, was a star. From the moment she was old enough to sit at a piano, she was extraordinary, a prodigy, they said, and they were determined to see her reach her fullest potential. She didn't just play piano. She played with the fire of a future Olympian. Figure skating, intense practice sessions, schoolwork, and all of it under the watchful eyes of her parents who expected nothing less than perfection. By the time she hit elementary school, she had trophies, medals, and accolades piling up faster than anyone could keep track. But what happens when you push a child to the breaking point? When every triumph, success, is always met with a silent demand for more. Jennifer started showing signs. A torn ligament in her knee dashed her Olympic dreams. But it wasn't just the injury. It was the growing pressure. The long nights, the sleepless hours, the anxiety eating away at her until she couldn't take it anymore. She started cutting, small horizontal marks across her forearms, a desperate cry for attention beneath a happy mask that she wore for the world. The happy Jennifer, the one with all the medals and the awards, but no one knew the battle that was inside of her. And so, graduation from grade 8 looms, a moment meant for celebration, for pride. But when Jennifer doesn't get what she expects, no valedictorian title, no academic medals, her world begins to fracture. But why? How could the girl who had everything, who seemed to excel at every turn, be left so devastated, yet still refuse to let anyone see her pain? Before we unravel the mystery of Jennifer's inner turmoil, we're going to take a quick detour, a moment of intrigue and temptation, for a new segment of the show. This segment is where crime meets chaos, and we analyze our favorite fictional bad boys. Welcome to Crime, Chaos, and Book Boyfriends. True crime and dark romance, two things that shouldn't go together, but here we are. This is where we're going to talk about crime-infused books, whether it's true crime, thrillers, dark, twisted romances, because let's be honest, we all love a morally gray hero, even if he'd 100% be in jail in real life. And since I'm a mom, you already know I didn't get to read this book in peace. No, I read most of it on my phone while my toddler tried to rip up a board book next to me. The struggle is real. So the book that we're talking about today is Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. It's a dark fantasy that blends mystery, morally gray characters, and a crime-driven plot. And if you love the idea of a haunted world filled with deception, betrayal, and characters that make you question their every move, then this one's definitely for you. So let's break this down without any spoilers. Phantasma follows a heroine who is thrown into a world of shadows, secrets, and powerful magic. But here's the crime twist. This isn't just some fantasy adventure. At the heart of the story, we've got political corruption, murder, and a dangerous game where trust can get you killed. The main character, Ophelia, is caught between rival factions, each with their own dark agendas. And then there's Blackwell, a brooding, morally gray figure with secrets of his own. And he's one of those should I love him or should I run for my life types, which we'll get into. This is a seductive fantasy adventure where a court of thorns and roses meets Caraval, With a steamy romance, authentic OCD representation, and shocking twists that will leave you breathless, Phantasma is a must read, especially for fans of Rebecca Yarros, Nisha J. Tooley, and Carissa Broadbent. So let's talk about why this book fits perfectly into the true crime lover's world. It is unlike some fantasy books that focus purely on magic and adventure. Phantasma is built around a mystery. There's an unsolved crime woven into the story, and as the main character digs deeper, she realizes she is way over her head. It's giving detective noir but with magic. And let's talk about Blackwell. He's a dark, dangerous, and definitely hiding something. In real life, we'd be throwing up red flags left and right, but in fiction, we eat this up. But let's be real, if this man existed in the real world, he'd have a rap sheet longer than my toddler's nap schedule. The charges that he would probably face would be obstruction of justice, because let's be honest, he's definitely keeping secrets. Breaking and entering, because these dark fantasy men are always sneaking into places they shouldn't be, and conspiracy. There's always a grand scheme happening behind the scenes. So in real life, a red flag, but in books, we love them. So let's pause for a second, because if you're a mom, you already know reading a fantasy book with this much depth is a full-blown mission. I had to read this on my phone because my toddler thinks physical books are either for ripping, throwing, or coloring on. I swear moms don't get to have the aesthetic reading moments. It's either a sneaky Kindle reading while you're hiding in the bathroom, or you're listening to an audiobook at 2 times the speed while washing your dishes. So if you need a book that keeps you hooked, even in stolen moments, this is definitely one that works. Now, let's turn the page back to our story, shall we? Jennifer's disappointment is not being named the valedictorian is more than just the sting of a missed title. It's the unraveling of something deeper, something that had been festering quietly beneath her well-crafted happy mask. What does one person do when their entire life's purpose is called into question? When everything they've worked for doesn't seem to matter? As we keep digging into Jennifer's world, consider this. Do you think the pressure to succeed pushed Jennifer over the edge? Was her cutting a sign of something darker, something deeper within the family's pursuit of success? What would you do if you were Jennifer, trapped under the weight of your parents' expectations? Would you conform, or would you rebel? If you were a witness to her pain, would you be able to recognize the cracks beneath the facade? The Jennifer everyone saw, the social butterfly, the perfect student, the model daughter, was just an illusion. Underneath that polished exterior, something darker was taking shape. But was she simply a victim of her parents' expectations? Or was there something more? Could the pressure of a perfect life have driven her to a place where she was no longer in control? Let's keep uncovering the hidden corners of the story. And remember, your theory, your voice, it is always welcome. Get ready to send us your thoughts and theories and what you would do in these different scenarios. You see, Jennifer wasn't just another student in the halls of Mary Ward Catholic Secondary in Scarborough. No, Jennifer stood out. She was the kind of person who could fit in with anyone. Brilliant, athletic, and artistic. She could have been a star in the school play, played in the jazz band, or led a club, and she would have been good at all of it. But under all of that talent, Jennifer was drowning. Her world was carefully curated. Her parents, especially her father, Han, were very watchful, controlling, demanding. A tiger dad in every sense of the term. Han wanted nothing less than perfection, and he did not care if the cost was Jennifer's happiness. Parties? Forbidden. Boyfriends? Absolutely not until university. And forget about the typical teenage freedom. By the age of 22, Jennifer had never been to a club, never been drunk, and never had a carefree vacation. As I continued to learn more about Jennifer's life, a strange familiarity crept in. I wasn't just an observer. I was a witness to a pattern. I understood that deep, gnawing pressure to be perfect, to be the child that fulfills every dream your parents have had to leave behind. She was a prisoner of high expectations, expectations that, like a tightening noose, strangled her joy. No rest, no play, just work, just achievement. And then one day, Jennifer's facade cracked. Midway through grade 9, something shifted in her academic life. Once that top student, she then began struggling. Her grades plummeting. She wasn't the perfectionist she had once been, and when she failed to hit the marks her parents demanded, she resorted to a secret, something no one could know. She forged her report card. Straight A's. A lie. A desperate attempt to keep the illusion alive. But the truth, as always, has a way of creeping up on you, doesn't it? What happens when the lies you tell to protect yourself begin to consume you? What happens when the weight of expectations become too much to bear? Jennifer's story was becoming more complicated, but we're not done yet. And this is where you come in. Did Jennifer's parents push her too far? Or was the pressure something deeper, perhaps even rooted in her own fears and regrets? What do you think? Could anyone survive that level of control without breaking? Drop us a message. Tell us your thoughts. As Jennifer reached the end of her teenage years, the boundaries her parents had set around her life had become more suffocating. And yet, they weren't entirely wrong in their motivations. They wanted Jennifer to succeed. They wanted her to have opportunities that they never had. But in the process, they lost sight of something crucial, their daughter's happiness. And perhaps more importantly, her mental health. At home, Jennifer was walking a fine line. At school, she was the golden girl, the one everyone looked up to. She swam, she played the flute in the senior stage band. She seemed to have it all together, didn't she? But in the quiet moments when no one was watching, Jennifer's world was falling apart. Alone in her room, she would wrestle with the unbearable burden of her parents' hopes and her own deep dissatisfaction with her life. We all wear masks, don't we? Some of us more than others. But behind every mask is a person with hopes, dreams, and fears that don't always align with the image they project to the world. Jennifer was living proof of that. And in the end, the most tragic part of her story might not be the lies she told or the pressure she was faced. It might be the fact that for all of her talent, for all of her success, Jennifer was never allowed to just be, to just live. In the world Jennifer had crafted for herself, reality was merely an illusion. And in this world of deception, Jennifer wasn't the only one with secrets. Enter Daniel Wong, the charming, goofy trumpet player who unwittingly became part of her carefully constructed facade. But where does the line between friendship, love, and deceit blur? And how far was Jennifer willing to go to protect her lie? Let's start with Daniel. Daniel met Jennifer in grade 11. A year older, gregarious, with a wide smile and a laugh that could light up the room. He was the kind of guy everyone liked. In fact, he was the kind of guy everyone knew. One of those people you'd see around school, always hanging out, chatting, playing Halo, laughing about nothing in particular. Most people probably thought they knew him well, but there was more to Daniel than anyone realized. He had his own secrets, things no one ever really knew about. In 2003, during a school trip to Europe, Jennifer had an asthma attack. It was terrifying, one of those moments where you feel your life slipping away. But Daniel, in that moment, became her lifeline. He coached her through the panic, helping her breathe, calming her down. As Jennifer would later say, he pretty much saved my life. And just like that, a relationship began to bloom. They started dating, platonic at first, but then something more. Yet as the relationship deepened, so did the cracks in Jennifer's perfect world. Daniel wasn't just Jennifer's boyfriend. He was a window into the world she created, a world of lies, a world where the truth was fluid and reality was something to be carefully crafted. He, too, was drawn into the web of deception she had spun. Jennifer would lie to her friends, to Daniel's parents, to anyone who asked. She said her father had hired a private investigator to track her every move, an embellishment to keep the facade alive and to keep Daniel's family from ever meeting her parents. But what was she hiding from him? What was she so desperate to protect? Here's where things get interesting, my friends. At first glance, Jennifer and Daniel's relationship seemed innocent enough. Just another high school romance. But as time went on, the stakes grew higher. Jennifer's world, built on lies, started to unravel. By the time she was in her 20s, Jennifer had convinced her parents that she was studying at Ryerson, about to graduate from a pharmacology program at U of T. She faked it all. Fake acceptance letters, fake transcripts, even a fake graduation ceremony. Jennifer had convinced everyone, including Daniel, that she was the picture of success. But behind it all, she was playing a game, one that would only get harder to maintain. Now let's think about Daniel for a moment. He may have been drawn into Jennifer's web of lies, but did he ever truly know the full truth? Was he complicit in her deception, or was he simply caught in her orbit, unable to break free? Do you think Daniel knew about the lies? Did he suspect that something wasn't right? Or was he just too in love, too blinded by his feelings to see what was happening? Send us your theories. Was he an accomplice or just a victim of Jennifer's elaborate charade? As Jennifer continued to weave her complex story, her life outside the home grew more and more disconnected from her family's expectations. She told her parents that she was attending classes, but she was really spending her days at public libraries, teaching piano lessons and spending time with Daniel. Her parents thought she was working toward a future in pharmacology, but in reality, she was building a life of her own, a life of lies. But like all lies, this one too was bound to catch up with her. 2 years had passed, and Jennifer's lies were growing more complex by the day. She had manipulated her way through life, creating fake transcripts, fake acceptance letters, fake graduations. But in the quiet corners of her mind, the rationalizations were wearing thin. She had to keep going, she told herself. Otherwise, she would lose everything. But how much longer could she live in this charade that she kept? Her parents, Han and Vic, finally realized that Jennifer's entire life was a carefully constructed illusion. They had been living in the shadow of their daughter's lies, each moment of pride they had in her academic achievements, each hopeful conversation about her future, built on nothing but smoke and mirrors. Here's where it gets even darker. After Jennifer's confession, the truth came crashing down. Han, in a burst of fury, demanded she leave their home. He wanted her gone. No second chances. But Vic, the ever-softening force in the relationship, convinced him to let her stay. Can you imagine that moment? The anger, the betrayal, the broken trust in the air? Han was livid, and Vic, her heart breaking for their daughter, tried to hold everything together, believing that perhaps Jennifer could turn things around, but the damage had been done. From that day forward, Jennifer's world was confined, tightly controlled. Her parents stripped her of her laptop, her phone, tracked her every move. No more secrecy, no more lies. They demanded transparency. Though Jennifer wasn't going to make it easy, they took away her freedom. Jennifer, however, was not the type to give up. She lived a life of deception for so long, she wasn't about to let this new reality suffocate her completely. For 2 weeks, her every move was monitored, her messages checked, her whereabouts tracked. But for someone who had spent years living a double life, this was just another puzzle to solve. She wasn't allowed to see Daniel anymore, and her parents made it clear. No more jobs except for her piano lessons. It was control, a clamp on her every avenue of escape. But here's the thing about control. It always breeds resistance. Jennifer, isolated in her own home, began to spiral. For someone who had been living in constant chaos, the sudden stillness was a foreign enemy. How could she cope? How would she escape the prison her parents had created for her? In February 2009, Jennifer made an unexpected move. She took to Facebook page and posted this cryptic line. Living in my house is like living under house arrest. The walls were closing in, and Jennifer knew it, but she wasn't one to just sit idly by. Instead of retreating into silence, she posted another message. No one person knows everything about me, and no two people put together know everything about me. I like being a mystery. That, dear listeners, is where things truly start to take a dark turn. Jennifer's need for control, her need to keep her life a secret, these were things she could not let go of. And if her parents thought they could rein her in, they were about to be proven wrong. Jennifer's behavior became more erratic. She had always been a master of deception, and the restrictions her parents imposed only fueled her desire to break free. One night, she executed a perfect escape, arranging her blankets to make it appear she was asleep, then sneaking out of her room and quietly leaving the house. But she made a crucial mistake. She forgot something. Her mother's wallet. The next morning, when Vic went into Jennifer's room to retrieve it, she knew immediately something was wrong. Jennifer was gone, and just like that, the game of cat and mouse began again. Vic and Han were furious. The lie had continued. The escape attempt was a slap in their face, and they made it clear. Jennifer had no more freedom. She had to come home immediately. But Jennifer wasn't ready to give up. She fought them, but she couldn't fight the truth. The relationship she had with Daniel was crumbling. He'd grown tired of the secrecy, the lies, the endless games. He broke things off. Imagine how Jennifer must have felt in that moment. The man she loved had finally given up on her. She was 24, still living under her parents' thumb, and now Daniel, the one person who made her feel like she mattered, was gone. So in the depths of her heartbreak, Jennifer took up an extraordinary plan. She couldn't bear to see Daniel move on. She needed him back, and she stopped at nothing to get his attention. What did she do? She concocted a wild story, one that would shock anyone who heard it. Jennifer told Daniel that one night a man had knocked on her door, flashing what looked like a police badge. When she opened the door, a group of men barged in, violently assaulting her in the foyer of her house. And it didn't stop there. A few days later, she claimed to have received a bullet in the mail, a warning, she said, from the woman Daniel was now seeing, a woman named Christine. Now I have to ask you, listeners, what would you do if you heard this story? Would you believe her? Would you feel sympathy for Jennifer's desperate attempt to get Daniel's attention? Or would you start to see this as another lie, a manipulation in the making? Could Jennifer be playing a dangerous game, or was she genuinely in danger? Head to our website and tell us what you think. Cast your votes, drop your theories. Let's dive into the mystery of whether Jennifer's words were just that. Words or something darker and more sinister. Can you even fathom the audacity of that claim? Jennifer was hoping to stir up fear, gain sympathy, and place the blame squarely on Christine. She wanted Daniel to see her as the victim, his victim, and hopefully pull her back into his life. But did he? Well, it wasn't that simple. Daniel had grown tired of Jennifer's games, her manipulations, the secrecy, the drama. And when he heard this latest tale, it was the final straw. He saw through her. The story didn't hold up. And just like that, Daniel moved on. He moved on to Christine, leaving Jennifer shattered in his wake. Now Jennifer was alone again, but not just alone, isolated. Her world, which had already been built on lies, was crumbling even further. The man she had obsessed over, the life she had fabricated, it was all slipping through her fingers. And what happens when someone who's lived alive for so long realizes that the truth is the only thing left? Is the truth a relief, or is it terrifying? Let's pause for a moment. We've watched Jennifer navigate a path of lies, heartbreak, and twisted manipulation. But here's the big question. Imagine you're in Jennifer's shoes. You've lost everything. The relationship you wanted, your freedom, your trust. Would you keep trying to manipulate those around you, or would you come clean and face the consequences? And if you were Daniel, what would you do upon hearing Jennifer's outlandish tale? Would you believe her, or would you see it for what it was, just another lie designed to gain control over you? We want to hear your thoughts. But hold on, this story is not over yet. Nope, there's more lurking in the shadows, waiting to emerge. As Jennifer's obsession grows and her lies begin to unravel, she's left with a burning question. What happened when the past catches up with you and the lies you've told threaten to destroy everything you've worked to keep hidden? In the spring of 2010, Jennifer reconnected with Andrew Montemayor, a childhood friend from elementary school. According to Jennifer's later testimony in court, Montemayor bragged about robbing people at knife point in a park near his house, a claim that he later denied. When Jennifer opened up to him about her troubled relationship with her father, Montemayor revealed that he had once thought about killing his own father. This dark confession intrigued Jennifer, who began to wonder how much easier her life would be without her father around. Montemayor then introduced Jennifer to his roommate, Ricardo Duncan. Between Jennifer's piano lessons, they reportedly came up with a plan. Duncan would murder her father in a parking lot near his workplace, a tool and die company called Kobe Ensto, located near Finch and McCowan. Jennifer gave Duncan $1,500, money she had earned from her piano lessons, and they agreed to arrange the details later. But when Duncan stopped returning her calls, Jennifer realized by early July she had been swindled. Duncan, however, claimed that when Jennifer called him in July, hysterical and demanding he kill her parents, he refused and returned the $200 she had given him for a night out. According to police, it was around this time that Jennifer reconnected with Daniel and they began exchanging flirtatious texts daily. Together, they hatched a far more sinister plan. They would hire someone to kill her parents, collect the estate, about $500,000, of which would go to Jennifer, and live together free from her parents' interference. Daniel provided Jennifer with a spare iPhone and SIM card, then introduced her to a man named Leonard Crawford, whom he referred to as Homeboy. Jennifer asked Crawford about the cost of contract killing, and he quoted $20,000, but said he could do it for $10,000 since she was a friend of Daniel's. Jennifer made sure to keep any conversations related to the crime on her phone, using her Samsung for everything else. On Halloween night, Crawford allegedly visited the Pans neighborhood, likely to scout the area. The sea of costumed children trick-or-treating up and down the street provided the perfect cover. But even as the plans were set, the tension between Jennifer and Daniel reached a boiling point. A message from Daniel threw everything into disarray. I feel the same about Christine as you do about me. Suddenly, the rug was pulled out from beneath her feet. Jennifer immediately texted him back. So you feel for her what I feel for you, then call it off with Homeboy. But Daniel's response was a curveball. He said, I thought you wanted this for you. Was this a breakup, a retreat, or perhaps just another game of emotional manipulation? Jennifer, in desperation, pleaded. I want it for me, she told Daniel to call off the hit. But what did she mean by, I want it for me? Was she admitting to herself finally that she was willing to go through with this on her own, no matter the cost? The plan was still in motion, though. Crawford texted Jennifer on November 8th. After work, okay, will be game time. The hit was scheduled, the pieces locked in place. But as that fateful night approached, things took a chilling turn. At 9:30 p.m. on November 8th, Jennifer was watching Gossip Girl in her bedroom while Han read the news. Vic, her mother, was out line dancing, a rare moment of freedom in her mundane life. But by 9:35, Vic had returned, blissfully unaware of the chaos that was about to erupt in her home. At that moment, Jennifer went downstairs, apparently to say goodnight to her mother. But there's something strange about Jennifer's actions that night. She later admitted to unlocking the front door, a detail that would come back to haunt her. Just a few minutes later, the light in the upstairs study flicked on, a signal, according to some accounts, to the intruders. A moment later, it was off. Then came the phone call. David, a friend of the Crawfords, called Jennifer, and they spoke for a few minutes, completely unaware that their conversation was signaling the beginning of the end. At 10:05 p.m., another call came in. This time, David was on the line again, and the minutes ticked by, each one tightening the noose. A few moments later, three men, Crawford, David, and Eric Carty, entered the house, guns drawn. The trap was set, and Jennifer was right in the middle of it. One of the men pointed his gun at Vic, while another raced upstairs to confront Han. Jennifer, still in her bedroom, was confronted by Carty, who tied her hands behind her with a shoelace. She was complicit, standing in the center of the storm she had set in motion. Jennifer directed the men to the money, $2,500 in cash, handing it over without hesitation. She even took them to her mother's nightstand, where they found an additional $1,100 in U.S. funds. And then the final stop, the kitchen. They demanded her mother's wallet. But here's where it gets tricky. If you've been following along, you know that we've already started to question Jennifer's role in this whole thing. But was she simply a victim of manipulation, or was she fully aware and complicit? Because while she handed the cash over and led them through the house, some of the pieces of the puzzle don't quite fit. For one, why would Jennifer at any point help these men, these strangers, if she wasn't involved in the plan herself? Could she have been coerced? Or was she just a pawn in the hands of Daniel and Crawford? The narrative that Jennifer spun in court paints a picture of a terrified daughter caught in the crossfire of a violent robbery. But does it hold up? As the police investigation continued, the prosecution's case against Jennifer began to crumble. Her story about hiring a hitman to kill herself, while bizarre, was ultimately impossible to prove. No one could corroborate her claims about Homeboy, and there was no evidence about any payments made to a mysterious assassin. Meanwhile, Han miraculously recovered from his injuries and began to piece together the events of that night. He remembered a chilling detail. His daughter, Jennifer, had been chatting softly with one of the intruders, almost like a friend. This contradicted Jennifer's claim that she was a helpless victim tied to the banister. Imagine you're a detective on this case. You're presented with this new information. Han's recollection of Jennifer's unusual behavior with one of the intruders. How would you proceed with your investigation? Would you confront Jennifer with this discrepancy? Or would you explore the possibility of a familiar connection between Jennifer and the intruders? Share your investigative strategies with us. The police, armed with this new information, began to scrutinize Jennifer's actions more closely. They noticed inconsistencies in her statements, inconsistencies that suggested she was not the innocent victim she claimed to be. On November 22nd, the police brought Jennifer in for a third interview. This one developed a different tone. Detective Gotez, his voice firm yet measured, confronted Jennifer with the inconsistencies of her story. He knew she was lying. He knew she was involved. It's now March 19th, 2014, and the trial of Jennifer Pan is about to unfold in Newmarket, Ontario. What was supposed to be a 6-month trial stretched on for nearly 10 months. The courtroom became a stage for endless testimony, with over 50 witnesses and 200 exhibits, a maze of twisted stories, unanswered questions, and damning evidence. Jennifer was finally forced to face the truth in front of a jury. 7 days she spent on the witness stand. 7 days of twisting, turning, and dodging the truth. Her defense? She had ordered the hit on her father in August of 2010, but by November she had changed her mind. She claimed that the plan had somehow gone awry, but the jury did not buy it. But Jennifer wasn't the only one in the courtroom. As the trial wore on, the weight of the crime began to crush everyone involved. The emotional cost of this tragedy wasn't just on Jennifer's shoulders. Her family, the ones who were still living, were forced to confront the devastation. Jennifer sat in the dock facing her fate as the guilty verdict came crashing down. No emotion. She showed no reaction. In the eyes of the jury, Jennifer was responsible for orchestrating the deaths of her parents. The severity of the charges, first-degree murder, attempted murder, was clear. The sentence, life in prison, no chance of parole for 25 years. But when the press left, something unexpected happened. Jennifer, the calm and composed figure from the trial, collapsed. She wept uncontrollably, shaking with the weight of her actions. Was it remorse? Was it fear of the future? Or was it the realization that her family, her real family, was lost forever? The story doesn't end there, though. Daniel, David, and Crawford each received the same sentence, life in prison. And let's not forget Eric Carty. His trial had to be delayed after his lawyer fell ill. But for now, these 5 individuals were no longer free, bound by their involvement in this twisted plan. But what about Jennifer's family? Her father, Han, was left with shattered bones and a broken heart. He wrote a victim impact statement that broke everyone's heart. I lost my wife, he wrote. I lost my daughter at the same time. How could he reconcile the fact that the person he had loved and raised, the person who was supposed to be his daughter, had come to be the very person to destroy everything he held dear? Han's statement continues. He feels like he is already dead, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. He suffers from constant pain. And even the things that once brought him joy, his garden, his cars, his music, no longer give him peace. The house where his family once lived, he couldn't bear to be there. He has to live with relatives because he can't bear the sight of his past. Felix, Jennifer's brother, he moved away, seeking solace and work on the East Coast. Unable to escape the stigma of being associated with the Pan family name, he too struggles with depression, shut off from the world. The effects of Jennifer's betrayal rippled through her family's lives, leaving behind only silence. Jennifer's father, still hoping for some form of reconciliation, made a final appeal. At the end of his statement, he addressed Jennifer directly. I hope my daughter, he wrote, thinks about what has happened to her family and can become a good, honest person someday. As we reach the end of this tragic chapter in the story of Jennifer Pan, we can't help but ask, what happens to the human soul when it turns so cold? What causes someone to orchestrate such cruelty against their own family? Is it desperation, betrayal, or something deeper, an unrelenting need for control? We spent weeks unpacking this story, doing our research. But now, dear listeners, we want to hear from you. After hearing this story, what are your final thoughts on Jennifer Pan? Was she a victim of circumstance or the mastermind behind her family's deconstruction? Head to her social media and leave a comment. We want to know what you think about this tragic case and how you believe the truth finally came to light. Before we go, a quick reminder. We are always looking for new cases to investigate. If you have a suggestion, a mystery that's been haunting you, let us know and we might just feature it in an upcoming episode. Your theories, your stories, your voice, they shape the future of this podcast. Until next week, dear detectives, remember, nothing is ever as it seems, and sometimes the darkest truths are the ones hidden closest to home. Sometimes the truth isn't just hidden in the darkness, it's lost forever. So keep your mind sharp, your imagination wilder than a mystery novel, and most importantly, keep having fun with it. And as always, stay curious, stay quirky, and always, always stay unmasked.